Imagine a criminal organization like the mafia, which controls a vast territory and has its own police, media, schools, and, of course, nuclear weapons. Now, put a man on top of this organization who believes, or at least wants others to believe, that he is a blessed hero, a descendant of national heroes, destined to rule this land. And now think about what such an organization is capable of. Human rights abuses? Sure. Arms sales? Well, why not? Drug trafficking, counterfeiting, human trafficking? You're on the right track. We're talking about Korea. And no need to ask which one of the two. Criminal activities. As is to be expected, some of North Korea's most notorious criminal activities are connected to its rivalry with South Korea and its continuous effort to force a union of the peninsula. The date is 9th of October 1983. Yangon, Myanmar. South Korean President Chun Doo-hwan, along with other officials, is visiting a historic mausoleum in the capital. Suddenly, an explosion erupts from the roof, and the massive blast tears through the crowd below. 21 people are instantly killed, including 4 South Korean ministers. The president, the main target, survives the attack. 2 of the 3 bombers are captured, and 1 confesses that the operation was orchestrated by the North Korean government. Fast forward 4 years to November 29, 1987. Korean Air Flight 858 is en route from Baghdad to Seoul, carrying 104 passengers and 11 crew members. Unbeknownst to anyone on board, 2 North Korean agents had planted a bomb in an overhead storage bin hours earlier. The device detonates mid-air over the Andaman Sea, killing everyone on board. Both of these horrific acts reveal one undeniable truth. North Korea will resort to extreme violence, even terrorism against officials and civilians alike, to strike at the South. But state-sponsored assassinations are just the tip of North Korea's criminal iceberg. Let's talk about its extensive global smuggling networks, some of the dirtiest operations known, and they've been going on since the 1970s. The regime's longest-running racket? Drugs. Between 1976 and 2004, there were at least 77 incidents of drug trafficking linked directly to North Korea, involving everyone from high-ranking diplomats to shady private citizens. After international seizures and public humiliation, North Korea pivoted its strategy. Instead of risking direct involvement, they began producing drugs domestically and outsourcing distribution to Asian crime syndicates. Then they share the profits. One of the most notorious ventures was the mass production of opium, with entire poppy fields cultivated just for this purpose. By the mid-1990s, they didn't stop at opium. Methamphetamine production also skyrocketed. According to witnesses, Kim Il-sung himself forced the North Korean people to grow opium, reportedly claiming that he needed cash. Just imagine this. Whole communities, even high school students, were forced to grow poppies, with orders to produce 60 kilograms of opium each. That's a state with no taboo, at least. North Korea's hunger for hard currency doesn't stop at drugs. They've also been accused of producing insanely high-quality counterfeit $100 bills, so convincing, they've earned the nickname supernotes. They are so good that it is impossible to know how many are out there. Estimates say it could be as much as $100 million. Of course, Pyongyang denies any involvement, and the scheme took a hit when the US rolled out a new $100 bill in 2013. And it doesn't stop there. North Korea's criminal empire stretches to smuggling endangered species products like rhino horn and ivory. Plus counterfeit cigarettes and pharmaceuticals, all booming in the 90s. It's tough to pin these operations directly on the regime's highest ranks, but it's also very hard to imagine Pyongyang is clueless about what's going on. They do seem to know everything else. The drug operation even backfired on the regime, as drug abuse became a major problem within its own borders. So authorities tried to control production and distribution at home. But the international smuggling machine still rolls on. It is true that the North Korean government has toned down its involvement in such provocative illicit activities over the last decade and decided to act more as a state than as a common criminal, acting now as a serious state criminal. It decided to disregard international law by selling, well, what else? Weapons. North Korea's brazen arms trade has many times openly violated United Nations sanctions. The regime has sold weapons to countries like Syria and Myanmar, using complex networks to dodge detection. Between 2012 and 2017, during Syria's brutal civil war, North Korea provided materials linked to chemical weapons, and they've also supplied ballistic missile technology to Myanmar's military dictatorship. But it doesn't stop there. North Korea's arms exports have reached as far as Africa, funneling small arms and munitions to rebel groups and rogue governments in places like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in 2024, despite the global sanctions in place, reports suggest the regime sold over 3 million artillery shells to Russia, turning a profit from the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The North Korean regime's criminality is not reduced to the outside, but also extends deeply into its own population. One of the most egregious offenses is its trafficking of women and girls, many of whom are coerced or forced to flee the country, only to end up in exploitative labor or sex work, mostly in China. Those trying to escape North Korea's brutal conditions and cross the border are often captured by traffickers. Women are commonly sold into forced marriages or prostitution, while others are sent to labor camps under appalling conditions. The regime's system of collective punishment makes this even worse. Disobedience or escape attempts don't just punish the individual. Entire families, including extended relatives, can be imprisoned for generations. The regime's cruelty hit a new low during the devastating famine of the 1990s, which wiped out up to 3 million lives. It wasn't just bad weather and poor planning. This disaster was fueled by Pyongyang's cold, calculated indifference. The government prioritized its own survival, while its people starved. They even blocked international aid, going so far as to label humanitarian help from Japan as war reparations. And if that wasn't absurd enough, in the early 90s, they severed ties with China, their lifeline for food, over petty ideological differences. As the famine raged on, the regime kept up its twisted facade of control, forcing starving children to work on massive construction projects. Meanwhile, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, the dynamic duo of disaster, were busy cementing their legacy as masterminds of one of the most catastrophic betrayals against their own people. Cult. Believe it or not, North Korea wasn't always the grim spectacle we see today. After the Korean War, the country underwent a turbocharged transformation. With heavy backing from communist allies like China and the Soviet Union, Kim Il-sung spearheaded a rapid economic and infrastructural overhaul. Cities were rebuilt, electricity flickered back to life, and factories sprang up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. In an astonishing twist, throughout the 1950s and 1960s, North Korea surged ahead of its southern counterpart, all while South Korea grappled with political instability and economic chaos under a series of ruthless dictators from 1961 to 1988. This whirlwind of progress, combined with relentless propaganda and a merciless crackdown on dissent, catapulted Kim Il-sung to near godlike status, a legacy that continues to shape North Korean culture today. This all started to get a little strange not long after the Korean War ended. It's 1955, and in a speech, Kim Il-sung introduces the world to his big idea, Jushi. Translated as self-reliance, it sounds like one of those typical national doctrines that governments roll out from time to time. But Kim isn't just paying lip service. He really means it. Jushi becomes an all-encompassing ideology that's supposed to drive every aspect of a North Korean's life. It's not just politics, it's Korean-style communism, infused into the very body and soul of the people. Through Jushi, North Korea will rise above the South, a South that's sold out to U.S. imperialism. Jushi will shape the nation's art, determine its politics, and in the end, dictate what is right and wrong. And of course, there's only one man qualified to interpret Jushi, one man destined to protect and enforce it, Kim Il-sung himself. And what does he get out of it? Nothing much, just absolute authority over every aspect of North Korean life, from the way people think to the way they work, forever and ever. No big deal, right? But Kim's ascent to unchallenged power didn't happen overnight. It was a bloody affair, marked by the brutal purges that followed the infamous August Faction incident of 1956, when two rival factions, one pro-Soviet and the other pro-Chinese, dared to criticize the hyper-Stalinist policies. They were swiftly eliminated, leaving his faction to rule alone. He even cut ties with the Soviet Union because who needs the very supporters that helped him rise to power? Those who opposed Kim found themselves on the wrong side of his purges, facing imprisonment, execution, or a one-way ticket to a forced labor camp. This ruthless crackdown didn't just eliminate opposition. It turned Kim into an untouchable dictator whose ego was only matched by the absurdity of his ideology. In 1968, his birthday, April 15th, was declared a public holiday, and the year of his birth, 1912, the first year of the Juche calendar. Imagine it as a form of Kim Christmas. Starting in 1974, Juche was upgraded with the 10 principles for the establishment of a monolithic ideological system. It sounds terrible, right? Well, better keep that opinion out of North Korea. These principles were first floated in 1967, following yet another failed attempt to criticize Kim's authority. The 10 principles basically became the supreme law of the land, outranking the Constitution, and can be easily summarized into this: Kim Il-sung is always right. No kidding. The first principle states, "We must give all in the struggle to unify the entire society with the revolutionary ideology of the great leader Kim Il-sung." The second, "We must honor the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, with all our loyalty." The third, "We must make absolute the authority of the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung." And it just keeps going. So, naturally, when Kim Il-sung died in 1994, he was immortalized as North Korea's eternal president, making him the only dead state leader on the planet. As the years rolled on, the cult of personality expanded to Kim Il-sung's son, Kim Jong-il. Now, Jong-il wasn't exactly the showman his father was, but his son, Kim Jong Un, oh, Grandpa would be proud. After taking power in 2011, Kim Jong Un went all in on the family legacy, practically channeling Kim Il-sung. He even evolved the country's official ideology with the incredibly creative title, Kim Il-sungism, Kim Jong-ilism, a nice nod to his predecessors. And at last, in 2021, came his own deserved moment when a new term appeared out of nowhere. Can you guess it? Kim Jong-unism. That's right. But behind the absurdity, this cult of personality is tightly woven into the fabric of everyday life through relentless indoctrination. We saw tears, sincere tears, when Kim Jong-il died in 2011. Yeah, most were very real, and they'd better be, because showing anything less than total devotion can have, let's say, severe consequences. Police state. In one of the most brutal police states on Earth, dissent doesn't just get silenced, it gets wiped out. For decades, this regime has mastered the art of keeping its population in line through one of the most ruthless police states on Earth. While the leadership projects an image of strength and prosperity, defectors and humanitarian organizations paint a much darker picture. Political prisons have been part of North Korea since the Kim dynasty's early days, first under Kim Il-sung, then expanded by Kim Jong-il, and now Kim Jong-un. And these aren't just places for criminals. You can end up behind bars even for somewhat criticizing the Kim family or having a distant relative who defected. Jimin Kong, a defector from 2005, describes the pervasive fear. Children grow up knowing those sent to political camps never return. They are taken away by a truck in the night, and nobody knows where they have gone, she explains. Satellite images reveal sprawling prison camps, with one camp alone covering an area 3 times the size of Washington, D.C. An estimated 120,000 North Koreans are imprisoned under conditions likened to World War II concentration camps, with 400,000 believed to have already died. But here's the kicker. Living outside these camps isn't exactly freedom either. Most North Koreans spend their lives imprisoned by the strict caste system known as Songbun, which has been part of the regime's DNA since the early days. Starting in 1957, Kim Il-sung introduced this system to classify the population into groups based on loyalty to the regime. If your ancestors fought the Japanese, congrats, you're in the top tier. Everyone else, not so lucky. The Songbun system keeps millions trapped in poverty, while a few privileged elites enjoy better food, housing, and education. But of course, even the top tier cannot feel absolutely safe from the absolutism of the ruler. After Kim Jong Un seized power in 2011, he purged over 300 officials in his first 5 years. Are you a family member? Still, be careful. In 2013, Kim's uncle, Jong Song-tak, was labeled a traitor and executed. In 2017, his half-brother, Kim Jong-nam, was assassinated in Malaysia, believed to be at Kim Jong-un's orders for his criticism of dynastic rule. This police state operates hand-in-hand with a powerful military. Enter Songun, or military-first politics, introduced in 1995 under Kim Jong-il. This policy puts the military at the center of North Korean life, ensuring that the armed forces take priority over everyone else. Because in Kim's mind, a strong military equals a strong regime. And if millions were starving at the same time, well, no matter. This brilliant idea drained already scarce resources from the civilian population to keep the military well-fed and armed, while the rest of the country suffered. The Songun ideology combined with the Songbun caste system created a perfect storm of oppression that's nearly impossible to escape. As a result, daily life is tightly controlled, and freedoms are virtually non-existent for most North Korean citizens. Travel requires government permits. Real internet access is a distant dream. Electricity itself is unreliable outside the capital, and cell phones are limited to a heavily censored, state-run network. So even if you're not in a prison camp, you're still living in a cage, just one without bars. Of course, the regime dismisses all of this as imperialist propaganda. North Korea today. Today, North Korea's regime clings to power with an iron grip, bolstered by a heavily militarized structure. A staggering 20 to 22% of its national budget is funneled straight into the military, maintaining an active force of over 1 million personnel, and an additional 6 million in reserve, all in a country with just 26 million people. The acquisition of nuclear weapons in 2006 only amplifies the threat North Korea poses to global stability, especially with its history of illegal activities, blatant disregard for international law, and unpredictable behavior. But nothing is foretold, and opposition exists even in the most repressive systems. As new ideas and information seep into the once closed society, we could be witnessing the beginning of a gradual evolution. Will North Korea continue to change, or will it remain trapped in its oppressive cycle? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the world will be watching closely.